Well, happy Friday, everybody. I'm Nick Slavik. I'm the proprietor of the Nick Slavik Painting and Restoration Company. I'm also the host of this show, Ask a Painter Live. It's a weekly live Facebook show where I use my 24 years of experience as a craftsman, a painter, a decorator, a restorationist, as you can see what we're doing here today, wallpaper hanger, colorist, all that experience in the trade to help you out with any of your questions you have about finishing. Now, normally I target my homeowners. I try to answer a lot of homeowner questions. From now on, we have partnered with the PDCA, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America, to bring in the contractor side of that. I started Ask a Painter a while ago because through social media, through HGTV, DIY, shows like that, I saw so much, not disinformation, not bad information, but just ways that people were wasting a lot of time and effort on things and projects and processes that gave them a lesser product at the end of it. So I thought, you know what, the least I can do is, I get all these questions anyway, I might as well just put them out there to help people out with their projects. And now with the PDCA, we are hooked in with some of the finest contractors, owners, entrepreneurs, leaders in this industry to bring in the contractor side of that. So part of this collaboration, I'm going to add some value to you homeowners by bringing in the contractors. You can see what professionals are thinking about. Not only do we have to run a business, we got to put out the finest work to meet all of your expectations. And then homeowners, you can see what contractors are thinking, and then contractors, in turn, we're going to have a lot of questions coming through here from the homeowners, and feel free to chime in and give your opinion on that stuff. That's what it's for. This is a forum, and I'm sort of just a moderator for it, but I want to get all this information, this time-fought, hard-fought information to these homeowners, to these contractors, so we can further our trade. So thank you for the PDCA, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America, for coming on board with this. It's going to be a great partnership, and certainly bringing in the finest professional contractors in the United States, and for that part the world, is going to be a great benefit to everybody here. So I'm going to walk you around my job site. This is the hashtag Slavic Century Restoration. This is my house. My house is 100 years old this year, and for its 100th birthday, we are completely restoring the exterior of it. The interior has basically been restored over the last 10 years by me. I'm going to walk you around this one real quick, and then we'll get to part of the partnership with the PDCA is they are finding questions from the best contractors in the world, and they are bringing those to here. So we'll have a contractor question of the week, and I will go over a question from another person who sent in something through the normal Ask a Painter channels about what I call reasonable restoration, and I'll walk you through the whole continuum about this. So first, let's take a walk around the job site here. So this is a home built in 1917, 1918, give or take. It's a little craftsman style. It's more craftsman than arts and crafts. Some people would call it a bungalow. To me, it's a little tall for bungalow status, but you can see all the apprentices up there starting spot priming the peak up here. It's a little tall for a bungalow, but certainly it could be classified a bungalow. But it's got all the great little features, the little dormers, bay windows, little sun porch. It's a wonderful little house. My family of 6 lives here nice and comfortably. It's just a beautiful little space to live in. You're not giving up any features. There's a lot of larger homes that have a bunch of stripped down stuff here. But this house has beautiful woodwork inside, all original siding, as you can see out here. I did add this tiny little fixed window up here. We actually turned a closet into a walk-in shower with subway tile and things. But you can see this side, the east side, because of the reflection from its sister house right here, which is a mirror image of my house, we have some blacktop. The east sun pokes up through here and it heats up quite a bit, and you can see it's midday here, and the sun is still going at it. So everything has been done to RRP standards, going by those guidelines. We are now, we've scraped, we've sanded, we've washed, we've done all this other stuff, and now we are spot priming. After spot priming, we will go back and caulk all the cracks, seal everything up, and then we will do 2 coats of Benjamin Moore Aura. In this case, it'll be flat, all by hand, all by brush. So I would imagine the next couple days here, we will wrap this up, strip the deck down here. We're going to sand that thing down, and then we are going to We're gonna poo. I haven't decided what finish yet to do on the deck. I'd like to experiment with something, but you know, if you guys have any suggestions, I'd be willing to give it a try. I will probably do some film forming finish, something with a satin finish. I kind of enjoy that stuff. One other thing I should show you. I'll flip around here. Oh, there's my son poking through. Say hi, Otto. Hi. Oh, there's one of my cats. Hey, let the cat in, buddy. Okay. So, I did a meticulous prep job here on these doors in preparation for Fine Paints of Europe. This is their Holland Lac gloss oil. Very, very shiny, very, very good. It's been a very, you know, the process is about what you expect. It seems to be a very in vogue sort of process right now. And I thought I would just, you know, because it's such a interesting topic, I thought I would give it a try so I could, excuse me, relay all that information to you guys. I took all the doors off, laid them down on the bench. I sanded as much of the old finish off, removed whatever I could, sanded it all down nice and smooth. 2 coats of oil primer sprayed on. I brought my 24-year-old Graco paint sprayer in. We sprayed oil primer on. I sanded them glass smooth, and then I did, this is a 1 coat of gloss oil, all by brush, and I'll be doing the 2nd coat either today or Monday, depending on you know, what I can get done. So, okay, so we will get to contractor question of the week here. Jimmy, contractor from Secaucus, New Jersey, he writes in, what do I need to know about dry mill thickness? I'm painting cabinets and was blindsided when the architect homeowner asked me about dry mill thickness. Now, dry mill thickness is only half of the equation. What you want to focus more on is wet mill thickness. Wet mill thickness is when the paint goes onto something, how thick is it? 1 mil is equal to 1 human hair, give or take. And there's an easy way to figure out wet and dry mill thickness and all that. I'll go through that equation later. But every product has a technical data sheet that prescribes how thick to put it on. And they describe how thick to put it on by wet mill thickness. To figure out how thick the coating is going to be, it's an interesting equation. You actually take the wet mill thickness, you times it by the percentage of solids in the paint. So I have an example here. A common one that you get into mill thickness, you know, it's less important when you're doing exterior stuff because when you're brushing, you know, you're only really going to put so much on to saturation. But when you have like, you know, Benjamin Moore Advance or cabinet enamels, things like that, and you're spraying, the temptation by contractors is always, well, I'll just give it 1 super thick coat. That'll be durable, it'll be quicker, it'll save a little time. But what you could run into is a lot of problems down the line. This Benjamin Moore Advance, for example, 39% solid, so it'll basically just lay it all out for you here. Recommended film wet is 3.6 mils. And then, you know, basically when it dries out, you take 3.6 times 39%, and that gives you about 1.35 mils. So really, you're laying down, in the end, what's only about 1 1/3 human hairs when you do a coat of Advance. And use that for a reference. You know, when you're thinking about coatings, because I know everybody has a tendency, thicker is better, more is better, but a lot of the times, what you can, the problem, especially when you have waterborne alkyds, things like that, where there's a lot of chemistry going on, you can, excuse me, you can actually trap solvents or things that need to evaporate down into that finish, and it'll either take longer to cure, it won't cure at all, it won't cure to full hardness, and the worst part about that is you could actually have delamination. You could have things peeling off, things not adhering well, and things that just don't go through the correct processes to do that. So it could be a completely horrible process like that. So I know that in this last winter I did a bunch of experiments on cabinet doors, things like that. And what I found is that you can push it a little bit in the short term. There is no detrimental loss or damage if you kind of go this way or that a little bit, but where people run into a lot of problems is when they're going 3 times the thickness of this. Another large portion of mill thickness, I'll show you guys here. This is always handy to have. I keep this with my spray stuff. This is actually a wet mill thickness gauge. And when I first started using these, you know, I have a pretty good handle on most of my spraying. I've been doing it long enough where Anytime I do something out of the norm, I do samples for the homeowners. I'll have a bunch of cabinet doors. I'll have, tin in my shop, and I'll do experiments on it. And I haven't seen any big failures, but when I started industrial coatings on metal buildings, we call them pole barns up here, and some of them can be factories down here, some of them can be agricultural buildings. In the past, I used to just use standard super high grade house paint, wash it, prime it if you need it, and then a couple coats of house paint. I wanted to offer my people something different, and nowadays we're getting away from a lot of the oil primers, a lot of the solvent-based stuff, and we're going to waterborne systems, even in industrial finishes. So I started with a 3-coat industrial system. It's a sort of a water-oil hybrid primer, direct-to-metal sort of primer. Does a little bit with rusty, but you really should do something else with the rusty metal. And then 2 coats of a very high grade, sort of almost elastomeric water-based coating. And it was very important, especially when you're dealing with tin in the sun, heat, humidity, wind, stuff like that, to do some tests. So what I did was I got some loose tin, did my experiments, and I just felt what it was like to lay down 6 mils, 7 mils, 9 mils, whatever the product recommended. I would say, okay, well, here's how I think I should do it. And I would lay down a pass, and in the middle of that pass, I would do one maybe on the end of the pass, just to see if there was any variability in it. And there's usually not, but you actually lay this into the coating. You just sprayed this area or brushed this area. You lay it down in here, and there's a series of graduated teeth there, and it starts off small, 1 mil, 2 mil, 3 mil, and you lay it in there and you pull it up, and the last tooth to touch the paint, you've at least done that, and it's usually between. So if you see paint on the tooth of the 1, the 2, and the 3, most likely you have somewhere between a 3 and a 4 mil thickness on that. And then every product is going to be a little bit different. Some products might surprise you. Some may go, do 9 or do 12 mils or something like that, and it's going to be a little bit odd. But normally you're going to be in the 1 to 6 range down here. Especially when you think about a nice thick, enamel like this, 3.6 mils. That's not a lot of paint. I mean, that's a very, very thin coat. So. Okay, I hope that helps out. Number one, when the homeowners ask you about that stuff, that means they probably had some experience in the past with it, usually bad experience. You usually don't need to use one of these until somebody questions you. Give me 1 second. Okay, so, but I kind of did a preemptive strike on this stuff, and when I got into uncharted territory, things that I really didn't know how to handle, or was that unsure of, when you've got, 180 gallons of this paint going on in one coat, if you do something wrong, life doesn't stop. Yep. When you're painting your own house, it's your own kids making noise in the background. So when you're in uncharted territory, I did a preemptive strike on this stuff, because when you lay out that much material and possibility of trying to strip it later if something goes wrong, I thought this was cheap insurance to do a test. So within an hour or two of messing around, you can get a good handle on what that's like. And then check yourself during the day too. As you get tired during the day, it gets hot, your back gets sore from spraying all these rubs and stuff, just make sure you're doing to the standard. And you can always have one of your apprentices with you, like I did, and once in a while behind me I'll just have one of them just kind of dip it in there just to make sure there's not any weird, even in the areas that I overlap, you got to be careful with that too. You might be laying down too much. So Jimmy, I hope that helps you out there. Let's see, we have a question from Austin McCracken. He's the owner of, and this happens to be a contractor too, but it's something that came through the normal channels. I'm connected with Austin on social media. He just had a question for the Ask a Painter show. He owns Fresh Coats Painting in Billings, Montana, and he writes, "Hey Nick, not sure if we're supposed to post on Ask a Painter, but I was wondering what your process for restoring older homes is with severe alligatoring. I'm currently working on a bid for a home. It's if you go to the Ask a Painter page, it's a green colored historic home with some shakes and some alligatoring there, and you can kind of see what we're talking about here. I'm currently working on a bid for this home, and I've discussed a few options with one of my Sherwin-Williams reps. The suggestion was to scrape away loose paint, hit it with 2 coats of Rejuvenate. I've never used this product, wondering from your experience what your thoughts are, and also what kind of process that you would go through. Now, for years and years, there have been many attempts at these sort of fix-all, cure-all, stop peeling, things like that. I have experimented with them up to about 8 or 9 years ago when they first came on the market. The thinking is you can put this sort of clear elastomeric encapsulating product on something, and the process at the time was spraying it on. I've done experiments spraying and brushing, and at the time, again, with the wet mill thickness gauge, if you get it right, you're supposed to do your normal prep. And some of the products even say you don't even have to prep, within reason. If you have potato chips coming off, you got to be careful about that. But most of them say minimal prep. You can kind of go just clean the house, make sure it's a good clean substrate, but maybe a coat or two of that on sprayed on, encapsulate it, and then sometimes some of the products you can tint, and that can be the top coat. Most of them you'll have to top coat them with something, a super high grade acrylic house paint, something like that. I have not found that to be a very, very successful sort of process with stuff, mainly because you're encapsulating one side, and mainly when we talk about this, we're talking about wood siding. We don't have a lot of peeling yet with hardy board, LP siding, masonite a little bit because it's been around longer. T111 is wood, so you might get it once in a while, but we're mainly talking wood siding and old wood siding, and stuff that's at least 20, sometimes 120 years old. And the problem is you're completely making this rubberized elastomeric coating on one side, but there's still this backside that I can almost guarantee you isn't back primed or finished or anything. So there still is a moisture issue. When you're thinking about these old houses like this, the siding goes right on the sheathing over probably tar paper, sometimes even just craft paper, floor paper, stuff like that. And there's not a way for that moisture to get out easily. Like nowadays when they do a lot of wood homes, what they'll actually do is put a mesh behind it, a light mesh, and then you staple or nail your siding to the front of it. And that way if water gets behind there, it has an egress of getting out or evaporating. With these old homes, sometimes moisture even comes from the inside. It migrates through and you have a very humid interior inside. A lot of the old plaster, a lot of the old stuff, it'll migrate through and you can have peeling problems. So if you can completely encapsulate the board, number one, you wouldn't have a problem, and number two, it's not possible, but you could do better with the issue. I did see a little bit better improvement with not peeling, but I think it has only to do with just the amount of stuff that I put on. When I did my brush experiment versus spray, it recommended spray because they want you to put on a very, very heavy coating, and the spray obviously did work better. The brush, I tried to do the best job I possibly could, within the parameters. It's very hard to lay down 15 mils with a brush, give or take, but I gave it a try. The brush didn't last as long as the spray, but now when I go back to that project and do some experiments with it, very, very difficult to prep from here on out because it's such a rubbery elastomeric coating that it will either come off on a large patch or it'll stick there, and that there's probably going to be moisture coming through the backside, and eventually it'll probably be very tough to get off, and worst case scenario you may be even at replacement. So I want to talk about what I normally suggest, which is reasonable restoration. There is a continuum of restoration where we take everything down to bare wood, sand it all down, and start completely from scratch like if this was brand new wood. And then there's spray it off with a garden hose and spray one coat of new house paint on it. Somewhere in between is where homeowners want it, and somewhere in between is where they're willing to pay for. So the key with historic restoration, or just restoration of old stuff, Austin, is to me less to do with the work, because there's sort of tried and true processes and coatings that will always work for this stuff. What's way more important to me is communicating to the homeowner where on that continuum you are, so that when you give them the estimate, they look at the price and then they see you doing the work. You want to make sure that all those things are like, oh yeah, that's exactly what I thought I was going to get. No surprises. Maybe even you did a better job than I expected. So to me, everything is communication in this stuff. On my own home, I practice reasonable restoration, where if I got a brand new scraper, if I got an ultraviolet paint stripper, if I got a brand new carbide blade and I sat on one area, one little, maybe a shoebox size area for half an hour, I could take all the paint off. But then I would spend my entire summer removing paint from my house that way. I could chemically strip it too. Very expensive process, a whole bunch of remediation you have to do. You have to be careful for your landscaping, surrounding structures, windows, things like that. And again, very time consuming, a lot of money wrapped up into a process like that. Most people do not want to do that because still, if you take your house down to bare wood, between 5 and 10 years, most likely 7 to 12, give or take, you're going to have to repaint it again anyway. This isn't a maintenance-free, end-all, be-all process. So you can take it down to the bare wood, and after 7 to 10 years or 7 to 12 years, you will have a better product at the end of that. There'll probably be less peeling paint if you stripped it all off, but you're still going to have to repaint it and maintain it. So that's the catch where most homeowners are saying, well, let's practice some reasonable restoration. On a house like this with a bunch of apprentices, 2 days worth of prep. That's about all you need. Between the RRP stuff, the sanding, the scraping, the washing, all that other stuff, up until the point where we start priming, it is what it is, 2 days. You could spend 4 days and do a little bit more, but there are such diminishing returns after a while. In the first day or two, with man hours, if you take somewhere between 40 and 80 man hours on a smaller home like mine, really 90% of what's going to come off is going to come off. A lot of what you see still on this house is, this is 100 years of sins that have been committed to this house. I mean, there have been good paint jobs in this house in the past. I mean, this is the third time I'm doing it. And you can see there's a lot of intact paint here because the old stuff has come off, I've prepped it correctly, and the new coating system is now on there. So then it lasts, but you still have this existing bad coating on there. And when you think about the 100-year life of this house, we've got, might even be some milk paint, definitely oil, probably different forms of oil, linseed and such. We probably got some lead. We probably got very, very early iterations of latex. Some water-based house paints from 70s and 80s. So we have the worst mix of possible stuff here. The good thing is it comes off easy when it does, and you slowly replace the old coating with the new stuff. So that's sort of, the reasonable restoration is just that, where it has half to do with the process, which I'll get to in a second, but half just explaining to your homeowner, like, trust me with this, we're going to have to do this 7 to 10 years later anyway. Let's over the course of the next 30 or 40 years, practicing reasonable restoration will probably come out in your favor than going whole hog with the first one and then expecting 20 years out of it and letting the maintenance slip and having to start over in a few areas. So my tried and true, there are lots of products that are tempting to try to fix all this stuff. Most people don't want to go through the prep work. It's a pain, it's a lot of work, and it's agonizing when you know you have a ton of work to do and you're on day 2 or day 3 and you're still removing paint from a house, and it's tough mentally to follow through with that stuff. But so that's why these products are very tempting to use in that regard. I just haven't found any of them to be, a good replacement for the standard process of washing, scraping, sanding, priming, caulking after primer, and then 2 top coats. There are products that say more or less. Even the products I use, either Duration or Aura, even them, most of them claim to be self-priming and 1 coat over similar color on repaints and this and that. I still prime underneath, and I still do 2 coats, and almost every one of my exteriors is done by hand. So it's one of those things where I haven't found a great replacement for that tried and true process. Now, I'm always experimenting with primers and with top coats and with things like that, but I'm still a huge fan of oil primer. In the last 2 years, I've been doing heavy experimentations with different primers, different schedules, mill thicknesses, drying times, things like that, and I'm slowly becoming more comfortable with water-based primer. It's tough on a house like this when you have either redwood or heart pine siding, and even after 100 years, there's a ton of resin still wrapped up in that stuff. So if you were to just take white house paint and just put it over stuff like this, within hours you're going to get bleeding. You're going to get those tobacco colored stains going over it there. So just one of those things where you still need to prime no matter what. And that's about, there's really not a better process than that. I mean, there's lots of tools, lots of coatings that come along. So Austin, my best advice for you is give them options if they want, but be very clear up front where you lie in that continuum between, I'm gonna wash this off with a garden hose and spray it with 1 coat of Sears Easy Living, and all the way through, we're taking this down to bare wood, we're doing oil primer, we're doing caulking, we're doing everything in between. So it's one of those things you kind of have to be reasonable with, give them the option for the full deal, you know, the standard prep, the priming, the painting, and you can say, well, you can also give them another estimate for, well, there's these products where, you know, you spray it onto a certain mil thickness, or you just apply 2 coats of this. It's a high build. It's supposed to take up a lot of the stuff. Just give them an option, and they can do some research on the products themselves. I mean, they can go to the websites, they can look at houses, they can call paint reps, and you know what, if it's something they're interested in and there's a benefit to them, either by saving time, saving money, or the possibility of a better finish, they may be interested in it. But you have to just give them the options. Don't just come up there and say, well, here's my bid. I'm doing 2 coats of this super high-tech new elastomeric coating. You can do that, but just tell them that, because they're going to get other estimates, and you're going to get some standard people who do the standard repaint. You're going to get people who do reasonable restoration. You're going to get high-end stuff. You just have to make it clear that your product is this, and this is what you get for that. So I hope that helps. I'm going to scroll through here, see what we got for questions. Hannah Brigman, thank you for watching. Chris Shank, the great and powerful Chris Shank, thank you for watching. Christine, oh yeah, Christine, thank you for watching. This will be good quality info. I hope it was to you guys. Jamie, thanks for watching, a frequent listener, frequent watcher. Let's see, the PDCA, blocking the mic. You know, I have the mic, it does work. Sherwin-Williams actually just stopped by on this project and brought lunch about 5 minutes before I went live here, so I had to do a little handshake, and I had to make sure the crew got all the free pizza from Sherwin-Williams that they possibly could, but then I had to hurry here, so I didn't have time to plug in the external mic, but I promise you next time it'll be there. So James Gilbert, frequent watcher, thank you, sir. Andy's painting of Benicia, you just shared it. Thank you very much. I do appreciate it. Nick Schroers, a good friend of mine here from New Prague. And Art, Art, nice neighborhood. I actually did some reasonable restoration on Art's house. He's got a beautiful, beautiful old 1800s brick home just down the block from me. So thanks for watching, Art. Yeah, I had, you know, with the doors being unlocked here, with the fine paints of Europe on there, you know, the cats are sneaking out, the kids are sneaking out, and I think somebody just woke up from a nap and wanted some lunch, so it got a little crazy there for a second. Oh, Ken Saul, must sand and leave it like 60 grit. Too many guys sand it smooth. And very, very, very wise words, Ken. A lot of people, and even on this house, there's been portions where there was attempts before I bought it to sand it all smooth between the paint chips and the wood and all that. And you have to understand, and this is something that I explain to all my homeowners, that latex paint, acrylic paint, on a whole, for the most part, is not sandable. If you take a random orbital sander to it, you'll sand a little, and then it'll heat up, get gummy, and it'll just start sticking to the sanding pad. So exterior stuff is a little better because it weathers, so it dries out. It's got a little chalk on it, so it sands a little bit better. But by no means do I brief my crew to feather everything out. I want razor straight boards. If we're practicing reasonable restoration, we just know that there's going to be paint chips, and there's going to be, you know, not jagged edges, but there's going to be an edge. You're going to be able to tell where a paint chip came out. And that's just how it is. Again, it's risk and reward with time and materials and how much you're supposed to, you know, put into it. And also with the smooth thing, I alternate between 60 and 80 grit depending on the job. I got huge stacks of the sanding pads with all the random orbital sanders and the vacs and all this other stuff. And depending on the job, you know, with this we go a little bit lighter only because it's historic wood and it's on the softer side. You know, there's probably some redwood mixed in here too. If it was all heart pine and stuff, you could probably go a little grittier, a little 60 or something like that. But 80 seemed to work just perfect here. And yeah, you have to have something with some tooth to it to accept that primer. That primer you want to penetrate and become a part of that top layer of wood and sort of get into those wood fibers. And you know, the reason we sand is to get rid of the old decaying or frayed wood fibers, things like that, so that we can get down to the good stuff, the stable substrate, and then that primer can penetrate and become kind of one with that top layer of wood and fuse. So we do want it to penetrate. If you sand it, if you go 200, 220 on wood outside, you're going to polish it so much that it's not going to accept like it would if you had 60 or 80 grit. So wise words, Ken. Christine O'Connell, it was. Thank you very much. Pizza's a priority. Yeah, it's. I believe it's Cinco de Mayo today, and he was nice enough to bring some taco pizza for us today. So Alicia, hey neighbor, what color is it going to be? Something new to pop in the neighborhood. There's nothing more than I want to do than change colors. This is an awesome color. This is one of my favorite colors I've ever used, inside, outside, whatever. It's an orange that I came up with based on a couple historic color palettes. I have a huge archive of historic color references, carpentry, furniture building, stuff like that, a lot of them with color plates in them. So you can tell a lot of the colors they used. And since I was, I've been doing this 24 years now. When I was a young guy, I would always try to, when I used to apprentice under my father, everything was sort of standard, whites, tans, reds, things like that. That's fine. I always tried to talk people into, let's do some blues, let's do purple, let's do coral, let's do orange. And orange was something that I could never talk somebody into, and until I bought my own house. And it is orange, and it's a historic orange, and I feel that it fits the house very well. I would love to change the color of this house, but we are getting ready for not only is this house's 100th birthday, in the next couple years, possibly thinking about moving out. We have a farm just outside of town too. So I think this is a very reasonable color. If I did change it, it would probably be something very flashy, probably not good for a resale on a property like this. So I think this is very fitting. It's an interesting color. It'll bring interest to the house, but it does pay a lot of respect to the heritage of a thing like this. And I think these colors actually fit really well. The trim is actually a Sherwin-Williams color called Ecru, which after a little bit of experimentation, I found that worked really well with that. Different levels of green versus red in the paint and stuff like that. But I thought these two were just really, really good. And then of course, my favorite color, Navajo white, I threw it in there a little bit for, you can see door jambs. I do my soffits and inner parts of the windows and things like that. So I would love to change it, but honestly, this is a good color. I really enjoy this color, and our next house we'll do some heavy experimentation as you guys would expect. So thanks for watching though. Oh, Sean Langley Painting Services here in Old Saybrook, Connecticut. Thank you so much for watching. I do appreciate it. And I should mention too that you will not be interrupting me anytime during these live feeds. You can type in your questions down below, and I'll do at the end of it, I'll scroll through and do this stuff. Or if you have questions for other viewers, things like that, certainly feel free to punch those things in. Luke, great high school friend of mine who actually just moved into the block here too. Thank you so much for watching. Art, I like your color combo. Well, thank you. I think I think it pays a lot of respect to the house, and there's certain colors. If you went to the newer side of town and you had some stone on the front of a house, some vinyl siding, and you tried to force a couple colors like this, may or may not work. But I think it's just some colors just fit. Like a train on tracks. Some colors just fit on houses, and it feels right. I think this one is a good fit for this house. I think it's kind of lively and also historic, which I like. So. All right, I think that's about it for today, unless anybody's got any other questions here. Thank you so much for watching. A couple ways to get us questions. Go to the PDCA's page, the Painting and Decorating Contractors of America on Facebook. You can send your questions there, post them there. You can message me through Facebook, Instagram, anything you like. The main place for all of your questions for this show is the Ask a Painter page on Facebook. It's Facebook.com/Ask a Painter. Write a post. Just go right to the front of that page. Write a visitor post. Definitely include images. If you're a contractor, you can send them questions either that way. The PDCA will collect all those contractor questions and funnel those to me if they're not connected with Ask a Painter, and homeowners as well. You guys too, just keep the questions coming. I love them. In this last month, I have got an enormous amount of questions that I'm trying to comb through now, and I want to present them to you in a reasonable and understandable way here. So, let's see here. Robert Lowe, have you ever painted a house one scheme at the front and sides and opposite scheme in the rear? I have not, except for those houses that are sort of vinyl on the vinyl siding on the three sides with some paintable trim versus a complete hardy board or LP front. Sometimes we'll switch it up. I usually like to keep it as plain as simple because you want to marry that vinyl to the soffit stuff. But Rob, thanks for watching. I do appreciate it, and we'll see you guys next week, Friday at noon, through the Ask a Painter page. Thanks for watching.